All right, let's see how this Ram 2500 Rebel, which I'm still kind of learning a little bit about this truck, but how it kind of compares to the Power Wagon. So I think the Power Wagon with the gas version is still a little bit more, maybe a little bit more lift, a little bit more of a beefy tire. I think I'm gonna have a locker still in the front, but let's see how this thing compares to the Ford interior. Right off the bat, one of the things I love about the Ram, these Ram boxes, these things are just awesome. Just a phenomenal feature. Lit inside, really cool. Check out the interior. It's got the power steps, really nice. All the soft point interior settings for different memory drivers, double stitched. The seating in this thing is still, I still feel like Ram's interior is still kind of like, I don't know, almost best in class in my opinion. Got the huge 12-inch display. Some people like it, some people don't. Got the dual glove box, just like the Ford, just like the GM, like that. Ergonomics in this truck, it's funny, you get in all these different trucks, they all feel a little different. With the Ram, it feels like the infotainment, as far as your display, it's tilted more forward, whereas Ford's is more flat, GM's is more flat. Let's start this beast up. One thing, I haven't drove a Cummins in a while, but I forgot, they still have a little bit of a delayed start, just due to their glow plug style. It's just not as fast starting, but you got the soft touch dash, leather. One thing I love about Ram is how they've got like their little 12-volt accessory up there. So if you've got like backup cameras for a travel trailer or TPMS sensors, I think it's awesome. Let's see their new display. I believe this is a new system. I could be wrong, but it's always really nice. Let's compare the Ram backup cameras here. So you got the 360. Yep, and they do this a little differently than GM, but I really like it. See how it's got the guidelines that kind of turn when you turn the steering wheel? I like that. That's where I feel like Ram and GM have a leg up on Ford right now. Standard column shifter, they do it a little bit differently, but got your 2 low, 4 high, 4 low, and then rear axle lock. That's the same as Ford. Get your brake controller, get your engine braking, front and rear park sensors. This is nice. GM ZR2 does not have the front sensors. You still have all of your, let's see what different camera options you have. You got your rear camera facing down, nice. Rear camera facing down, and then your cargo box. I will tell you right now, I can already tell that's a higher resolution than the Tremor. That's nice, really nice. Let's see, it's got some more cams. What other options we got here? Oh, for trailer, vehicle. Okay, very cool. What's this? Man, this thing's got all kinds of options here. Very cool, like it. Let's go back to this, close this. All right, let's put it back in drive. Look at some of the different infotainment. So this is all digital, just like the Ford, just like the GM is now also all digital. So they're all on the same page when it comes to that regard. 80 PSI, so this will be a pretty similar comparison as far as ride comparison. I will reset the fuel economy here. Oh, that's really nice. There's your drivetrain, distance. All right, screen up, got that. Oh wow, there's a lot you can do here with these displays. That's cool. Display style, traditional. Let's go modern. Let's see what this looks like. Gonna put it back to the traditional. I kind of prefer that a little more. Okay, it took me a minute to figure this out, but here's your analog gauges, and then you get into your digital gauges. That's kind of cool. It gives you both options. Took me forever to figure that out though. I set my current fuel mileage up there on the left, average in the middle. I'll reset my tripometer here in a second, but just kind of getting a feel for the interior here, looking at different options here. Let's see how the mirrors compare. Okay, you fold your mirrors in with this button here. Very nice. Let's see how, I think you hit that button. I assume, there you go. Yep, very easy. Yep, I like the new mirrors by Ram. I think they look a lot better, and they functionally seem to work way better in the not out position. So that's a great improvement over the last Ram. That was a thing why I didn't care for, is how they did the mirrors in the last gen truck. I'm sure like every Ram, I'm sure the stereo system sounds great. Looks like it has a review camera up in the mirror, just like the GM. Got the sensors front and rear. Let's look at storage. This is normally where Ram does really well. I like this personally. I think this is probably one of my most preferred storage, up like that, separated. Huge storage down below. This is awesome. Got a ton of storage. This is great. These seats look beautiful too. The Ram does not telescope, it just goes up and down. So you don't have that feature, and it is manual where the Ford is power. Harman Kardon radio, you know, that's another area where I feel like Ram does really good normally. As far as the position of putting your elbows and everything is nice and soft. This feels really good. I like this too, by the way. That looks super cool. And it's even got Rebel on the embossed in the leather seat too. Very nice. All right, so I want to turn on the cooled seat here. This is a feature I'm going to use quite a bit. There we go, cooled seat. See how it compares. I kind of wish, to be fair, that it had the buttons down below for the cooled seats. I'm not a fan of touching a screen going down the road like that. I'd rather just hit a button down below. So just call it a zonk or whatever. I wish that it did have that. I'd be curious to see how the engine brake works. We'll test that out too. Let's give it a go. I'll reset the tripometer now and see what we get for fuel economy. Let's see. Lots of options here. Holy cow. There we go. Let's reset. Boom. Let's try it out. Right off the bat, one of the things I notice is the bulge in the hood looks aggressive. I love it. I think it looks so big and bulky and tough. Just the purr of the Cummins engine is hard to beat. You know, first time I drove a Cummins was in 2004. And ever since then, I've always just been a big fan of just that. Just feels like a semi. There's something tough about it. You don't get that with the Duramax or the Power Stroke. And they still got it in 2024, 20 years later. This engine still has that characteristic. One of the things too that I'm noticing right off the bat is how small this cab feels. This height of the windshield, I feel like I'm in like a coffin. It just feels so small, this cab does, which can be good and bad. You know, if you're wanting a truck that just feels a little smaller in the interior, this would be a good fit. It just all depends on what you enjoy, but it does give a smaller feel. I also like these soft handles. This is nice. There's no delay of power. There's no doubt about that. This thing accelerates great. Got that beautiful Cummins purr. Oh, man, I like that display. That looks super cool. So there is no drive modes that I've noticed with this truck, unfortunately. That just must be something Ram doesn't do. I can tell you right off the bat, the steering on this thing is very easy. I don't know how to explain it, but this thing has just got such an easy steering. It's much easier steering than the Silverado ZR2 or the AT4X. I also noticed right off the bat, the tire noise in this thing it's loud. I mean, these tires roar. And this just could be something with the Duratrack. I've noticed this with the Duratracks. I've talked about this in other videos. I'm not a huge fan of them. I feel like they typically make a lot of noise, especially when they're brand new. It's like the tire has to break in or something. It's really bizarre. I'm not sure what that's about, but it is just something I've noticed. I'm gonna do a little bit longer loop here than I would normally do. I wanna let this engine warm up to give it the best shot for fuel economy. But as you can kind of see, you know, here we are, 74 miles an hour. We're getting right now currently about 16 miles per gallon. So here we are cruising at 80, just shy of 2,000 RPMs and 15 miles per gallon. Great steering. I don't know how to explain it. I have not driven a Ram in quite a while in a heavy duty, but definitely different driving mannerisms. This distance between the hood and the dash, I feel like I'm in a Camaro. It just feels very small, the cab. The 12-inch display, it feels very premium. You can tell it's a really nice system. You just got to get used to it. I'm used to like more of the horizontal screen position. You know, there's pros and cons. I like this instrumentation. I've always been a big fan of Ram's gauge layout. I don't know how to explain it. I just feel like it works for me. The layout, the ergos, everything makes sense to me about it. Plus, I've always been a big fan of the steering wheel controls. I think Ram's got the best steering wheel controls also. You got your radio controls on the back. This is a really nice steering wheel. All right, now I'll give you a different perspective for fuel economy. I set the cruise at 70. One way I did 74 to 80, so you can kind of see. Now I'm going downhill right now, so it's not a great representation, but this road is in horrible shape. We got expansion joints, and it's definitely got a little bit of a rough ride right now. I'm not blaming that per se on the Ram, because I think in general the Rams, especially at 2500s, ride really good with the 5-link coil suspension in the rear. These seats are really comfortable. Cooled seats work great. Everything honestly works really good in this thing. I really like it. I love the Cummins engine. I've always wanted one. The 68 RFE transmission, 6-speed, You know, you got 4 less gears than the Ford GMC and the Silverado, but this trans feels really good. I mean, I know there's some people are not a big fan of Ram's transmissions behind the Cummins. They don't have the best track record, to be fair. But this one, you know, it's brand new, but it's just really good and smooth, I have to say. This truck literally has 22 miles on it. I guess it should, but still, it shifts really good, nice and smooth. Be curious to see, you know, how the fuel economy compares versus, you know, the power stroke in these same speeds. Here we go, 21 miles per gallon at 70, not hypermiling. I'm not even gonna compare power because it's really not a comparison. The high output diesel, it feels 50% stronger than this. It's not even fair to try to even go that. So I'm just more or less just looking for the day-to-day power. If you're towing, there's without a doubt the Cummins is not going to have the power that the Power Stroke has. But there's a lot of other benefits to the Cummins. They're easy to work on because you got more room under the hood. I'm really curious to see how the engine braking compares. That's what I want to see. All right, just engage the engine braking right now, and you can definitely feel it slowing down. I'll get back into the gas just to kind of compare. Speed it back up. We'll get off the exit here, and let's just see. This is off the gas. Foot is off the gas completely. You can hear it. I mean, it's decelerating at a really nice clip. And I've got the full on, not the automatic, so just for comparison's sake. Yep, I think Ram did a really good job. You know, they're trying to make the most with the platform they already have. For those that are not aware, with the heavy-duty truck market, both GM, Ford, and Chevrolet have had all new cab configurations with their heavy-duty truck in the past few years, where Ram is still using the old chassis. So they have a considerably smaller back seat, less legroom. I think it's like 4 to 6 inches less legroom. Still a functional truck, but it could use a refresh. I look forward to when Ram does get the updated interior with the bigger cab, so they can kind of compete with the Ford and the GM and Silverado. But it's still got a refreshed interior off of the old cab, so it does look nice and fresh. It doesn't have the heads-up display like the others do. I wish it did have that. A lot of people buy a Ram heavy duty just because the engine, so that's a huge benefit in itself. Another big thing I think that Ram has that the others don't have, if you're looking for a 2500 or a 3/4 ton truck, is a coil rear suspension. That's a big one. You know, the others are leaf sprung, so this does ride a little better. I even feel like just hitting these rough roads, the steering wheel, I don't get any feedback in it. I still feel the Ford gets a little bit more feedback into the steering wheel than both the GM and the Ram. This is a benefit, I think, to the Ram over the Ford for sure. Lane keep, that system worked pretty well going down the road. You got blind spot indicator, that also works. All right, finishing up the trip, I'm gonna go now compare this to my Ford and see how it compares. I'll do the exact same loop so you guys have an apples to apples comparison. All right, let's see what we got for fuel economy on that trip. 15.4 miles per gallon over 10.8 miles. Not great, but let's see how it compares. Let's look at second row storage. This is huge. I love that Ram still does the storage in the floor. I think that's a huge, huge play that I'm surprised the others don't do. Really nice door panels. Doesn't have anything in the second row like the GM or the Silverado. But this is debatable, but I actually like this feature where this folds down, makes a flat floor. So yes, it's a little bit higher than the Ford, but you still get a flat floor because otherwise you've got the hump in the middle. This has been something part of the old generation that is kind of nice. This is kind of cool. It's got a light underneath the rear seat, so I guess that kind of gives you the rear illumination in the bottom. You can definitely tell it's got less legroom, you know, versus like if you had a Ram 1500, it's got the newer cab, so you get a little more legroom. But this is a nice truck, no doubt about it. I think the biggest thing that's kind of a bummer to me is the payload. I mean, you're at a half ton, you know, at that point. All right, I'm gonna do the exact same loop, see how she does in fuel economy. Right off the bat, the first thing I noticed is this head clearance. It just feels like a much bigger truck, more space inside. Ride quality, I would probably give a slight nod to the Ram over the Ford. Steering ease, I think the steering is a little bit easier in the Ram also. dash and gauge layout, this just feels like a bigger cab. Just feels like a much bigger truck. I don't know how to explain it, but it just feels a lot bigger inside. All right, doing the first part of this trip, just like the Ram Cummins, 74 miles per hour, not hyper miling, so we can get a little bit of a comparison. You can see right about 74 right now. I'm getting maybe 18, 19, somewhere in that range. All right, just making the second part of this trip now. Let's go back and kind of compare. Like I do in all videos, I try to compare apples to apples. Similar amount of acceleration, same time of the day, same direction. I try to do it as equal as I possibly can. I just did the Ram like 15 minutes ago. So it's same temperature, same wind direction. Try to make sure both trucks are warmed up or close to it to try to be equal there. Try to make sure one, you know, isn't in a regeneration. Clearly the Ram was not. It's a brand new truck, so it's not in a regen. And then the Ford is not. Transmission shifting comparisons, I can say pretty close. I think the Ford, it shifts a little more because it's got 4 more gears. You don't hear the motor in the Ford, it's quiet. Whereas the Ram, you can hear the Cummins. It's got that nice gurgle. The heads-up display, man, the Ford will spoil you. Power-wise, you know, no surprise. It's drastically better with the Ford. Now I'm gonna kind of slow this thing down to show you at 70 miles an hour because I did the same section at 70 miles an hour. Let's just see how fuel economy compares. So far, the Ford seems to be doing considerably better in fuel economy than the Ram, which I'm kind of surprised by. The Ram's got smaller tires. It's got the huge air dam up front. I'm a little surprised. This Ford, I've got probably 300 or 400 pounds of payload in this truck. The Ram had 0. If we look at fuel economy so far, I am at 17.5. So we'll see what it's like when I get back. But here we go at 70 miles an hour, just for comparison's sake. Run a flat here. No hyper miling. There we go, 70. Cruise is on. Flat. Nobody in front, nobody behind. 25 miles per gallon. So it's about a 3-4 mile per gallon improvement at these speeds versus the Cummins. Didn't get a chance to decelerate off the highway in engine braking, but I'll just do it right here. It's a slower speed, but yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it still feels pretty solid. I mean, it has the gurgle of the Cummins. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I see it any worse. I mean, I'm sure it could be different with a trailer attached, but it's not bad. Hands off the steering wheel, just to kind of see how is the expansion joints on the road versus the Ram. You can see a little bit more feedback if you look. You'll see a little bit more jostling of the steering wheel versus the Ram. I think the Ram 2500 rides a little bit better, but I mean, are you surprised? It's a coil suspension in the rear versus a leaf sprung, and it's a 250 with 1,600 pounds of payload versus a 350 with 4,100 pounds of payload. Pulling back in, pull it right next to the Rebel, and let's see what we get for fuel economy. Just for an apples to apples comparison, 19.1. So 19 versus 15, pretty big difference. Let's compare this now to the Ford, just for comparison's sake. So right off the bat, you got the projector LED headlights. Those things look awesome. It's got really nice headlights. Compare this to the Ford now. I think the Ford is a little bit taller. It's probably about 2 inches taller. They're both running Goodyear Duratrac tires, but these are a 35-inch tire, and I believe these are 33-inch tires. Both have an E-coated frame. A little bit smaller diameter shock, but I believe that is a Rancho shock, so that's really nice. The Ford, I think, has a larger diameter shock. It looks like a little larger, and it's lifted a little bit higher. This has 360 cameras, just like the Ford. This has the Ram box. Here's what I think helps a lot with the ride quality is the coil rear suspension. That's awesome. And you got the 5-link. I like the E-coated frame. Huge upgrade over the GM. And you got a traditional tip. I actually like the look of the exhaust tip on the Ram versus the Ford. I think it just looks a little better. Look at the back of the trucks, kind of comparison between the two. I don't know, I might give a little bit of the nod to the Ford, just definitely because you've got the step in the rear bumper, whereas the Ram you don't. And it doesn't, I don't think you've got a tailgate step or anything built into this as well. Let me see. Do you have a soft drop? That's nice. Real nice extender. Nope, no tailgate drop. Do you have lights in the rear? I like that, easy access. No tailgate step or easy access way to get in. Got a 2.5-inch, no step in the rear, and no step in the side of the box. But what Ram does have is the Ram box. This is a huge feature that everybody seems to love. I'm sure they probably patented it. Rear window, sliding. It's a nice truck. 20-inch wheels on the Rebel, whereas Ford is running the 18-inch. Ford, obviously, you get the steps in the side, soft drop tailgate. Is that yours? So the Ford does have the tailgate step. You know, a little easier to get in and out of, not a big deal. Ford does have the fifth wheel prep, so you do get the 7 and 4 pin in the rear. Obviously, you also get the lit box as well. So that's an easy comparison to the Ram and the Ford, so that's nice. The Ford is running a traditional leaf spring with overloads. A little beefier setup here. And obviously the Ford has considerably more leg room in the rear. You can see, I mean, you gotta have at least 4 inches. Here's your storage comparison in your second row. Flat floor, you got this. And this is nice because this will fold down. No storage in the back. We get into the Ford now. Let's just compare interior. You know, as far as interior quality, niceness, they're both nice in different ways. They both have soft point on the door, nice upholstery on the seats. As far as payload though, massive difference. I mean, this truck literally has 200% more payload. You're talking 1,600 pounds versus 4,100 pounds. So now let's look inside, kind of compare some of the different interior. Completely different interior layout. You can see the gauges, display, really cool heads-up display. I don't know if I'd say Ford is better or Ram. They're just different in this regard. Just a little different displays. Both have 2 glove boxes, top and bottom. Both have decent storage. I think the Ram storage is a little better. I actually like it a little bit more. To be fair, I think in some ways, I think this area is a little fancier. It looks a little more premium in the Ram than the Ford. So this is the 2024 2500 Rebel Crew Cab. And you can see the price, $96,000. And this comes with the, I think it's the level 2 package. You want to make sure. Level 2 equipment package. Yep, it's got everything, but $96,000. So which truck would you want? Well, they're both great in different ways. You know, I like both of them for different ways. I love the Cummins engine. I don't know how you not like that engine, personally. It's all on what you want. For me, buying a heavy-duty truck, what I like about the Ford, locking front differential, the 10-speed transmission, a crap ton of power, 500 horse versus, I think, 375. 1,200 foot-pound torque versus, I think, 850 or 875. Could be wrong. I need to check into that. Payload though, 4,100 pounds of payload, 1,600 pounds worth of payload. Interior, that's all up to debate. That's all in what you like. Honestly, I love the Ram interior. I think they've done such a great job. This is a really nice truck. You can't take it away from Ram. The Cummins is great. The interior is great. I love the dash, like the layout. If you want a smaller driving feeling truck, I think this truck drives a little bit more nimble. It feels a little bit easier. It doesn't feel as massive as my truck. Also, Ram, nice job. LED tail lights, entirely LED. Whereas the Ford, these are halogen with an LED backup. Headlight, I think exterior lighting on this, I would give to Ram. You know, Ford has the reflector LEDs. Ram has projector LEDs. That's a more premium upgrade. Look under the hood of this beast. Got a lot more room underneath here to work. It's really nice. It's a beautiful truck. It's definitely still shoehorned in there, but still not as bad as Ford's. And that's what it's all about right there. Beautiful truck. Here's another thing too. Check out these tow hooks. Freaking massive. Whereas if you look at the Ford, they're big. They're big. A little smaller diameter, a little smaller to get around. Not as big though. Now, off-road capability. Look at that air dam. Man, it's low. Ford's got a little more space. Off-road capability, just my opinion here, I'd give it to the Ford. Locking torsion front differential, 35-inch tires, more clearance on the front end versus the lower air dam. Lifted a little higher, a little more power. But Ram, you know, they probably got some secrets. Having that backbone of Chrysler and Jeep and their off-road goodies, you know, there's probably some off-road technology that, you know, we don't even know about until you get into that scenario. So here's a real question. Which one would you take and why? Why would you go with the Ram? Why would you go with the Ford? I'm really curious to get your perspectives on this. Both really sweet. Can't go wrong with either.